Visceral fat is the silent killer. It's the most dangerous type of fat because it's the fat that wraps around your organs, wrecks your hormones, and drives up your risk of heart disease and diabetes. But don't worry, because the good news is you can burn it off. And if you know what you're doing, you can burn it off fast without any crash diets. So in this video, I'm going to cover why visceral fat is so dangerous, how to tell if you've got too much of it, and then most importantly, the exact diet that's already worked for hundreds of my clients that you can follow to burn it off fast. This diet is backed by science, and the results might surprise you because it isn't just about carbs, calories, or some magic macro split. It comes down to something much simpler, and I'm going to break it down into actionable steps that you can use straight away. So full screen the video, get yourself comfortable, and let's lock in, lads. Before we get into the diet itself, we need to talk about what exactly visceral fat is and why we should be so worried about it. You see, visceral fat is the type of fat that you can't see. It wraps around your liver, your pancreas, and your intestines like a parasite clinging to your organs. And the really scary part, it's not just sitting there, it's active. Visceral fat is constantly pumping out harmful chemicals called cytokines, triggering constant and chronic inflammation throughout your body. It's like toxic sludge leaking through your body. It's poisoning your organs, damaging your blood vessels, and wrecking your hormones. And when you've got high levels of visceral fat, your body becomes a breeding ground for diseases. Your risk of heart disease and strokes skyrocket because inflamed arteries are clogging up faster. Your insulin sensitivity crashes, setting you on a course for type 2 diabetes. Your testosterone completely tanks, killing your energy, your drive, and your ability to build muscle. And if that wasn't enough, visceral fat has even been linked to certain cancers and dementia. But what's absolutely crazy is that you can be thin and still loaded with visceral fat. I've seen guys who look fit and their visceral fat levels are through the roof. And the worst part, visceral fat very rarely gives you any warning. I mean, after all, it's called the silent killer for a reason. Sometimes there's no pain and no obvious signs until one day you get a serious health scare or even a heart attack. But how do we actually end up with this toxic sludge clinging to our organs? Well, the short answer is your lifestyle. Eating crap, barely moving, stressing daily, sleeping poorly, and drinking too much. Those 5, that's a cocktail for visceral fat. But listen, I appreciate I've given you nothing but bad news until now. So here's the good news. All of this is very fixable. And in the next section, I'm not just going to show you how you can spot if you've got too much visceral fat, but more importantly, what to actually do about it. All right, so how do you know if you've got a visceral fat problem? Because here's the thing, like I said, most guys don't have a clue. They assume, well, if I don't have some massive belly, I'm fine, right? Wrong. You could be walking around with serious health risk without even realizing it. And I'm not saying any of this to scare you. I'm just saying it to make you aware. Now, the most accurate way to measure your visceral fat levels is with a DEXA scan, an MRI, or a CT scan. But let's be honest, you're probably not booking one of those this week. I mean, you can't exactly roll up to a hospital and demand a CT scan because some guy on YouTube told you need one. So here are some simpler ways to figure it out. First up, the waistline test. Get a tape measure, wrap it around your belly just above your belly button. If your waist is coming out at over 40 inches, not good. That means visceral fat has already set up camp. But waist size alone isn't the full story, which brings me to waist to height ratio. This one is even better because it accounts for your total body size. Here's the rule. Your waist should be less than half the size of your height. So let's say that you're 5'10". That's 70 inches. Half of that is 35. So if your waist is over 35 and you're 5'10", that means you're carrying too much visceral fat. Simple as that. Next, we've got the belly shape tech. If your stomach feels hard and round, almost like a bowling ball, that's a classic sign of visceral fat. Whereas if it's soft and squishy, that's still not great, but that's more of a sign of subcutaneous fat, the fat that sits under your skin. Like I say, still not amazing, but it's a lot less dangerous. This fat is essentially stored energy. But if your belly is sticking out, even when you're trying to suck it in, yeah, that's your visceral fat talking. And lastly, and probably most obvious, is to just look at your health markers. If you've got high blood pressure or high cholesterol, if you're pre-diabetic or insulin resistant, or even if you just feel tired and sluggish and foggy all the time, these signs often go hand in hand with visceral fat. So if any of those whatsoever are hitting home, pay attention, because visceral fat is a little bit like carbon monoxide. It's invisible, silent, but deadly. But now that you know how to spot it, you can beat it. And that's exactly what we're going to get into now. The best diet to not only burn off the visceral fat, but keep it off. But I'm not going to give you some complicated macro counting nightmare. And I'm certainly not going to tell you to eat nothing but chicken and broccoli for the next 6 months. This is based on a study that followed 190 people for an entire year. Real people living real lives with real results. And what the researchers did, I'm pretty confident it's going to change the way you think about fat loss. So they split the group, 190 people, into 3 groups. Group 1 were essentially put on a ketogenic diet where only 8% of their calories were coming from carbs, whereas Group 2 and Group 3 were both put on high carb diets where 45% of their calories were coming from carbs. The difference between 2 and 3 is that Group 2 were put on more of a whole foods type of diet. So the carbs they were getting were brown rice, they were fruits, they were oats, and they were potatoes. Whereas Group 3, it was more like pasta, some baked goods, and instant oats. Everything else, literally everything, was identical. Same calories, same protein, they ate the same type of fish twice a week, and they even had the same vegetables. So the only difference was the type and the amount of the carbs. But the results shocked everyone. After a full year, all 3 groups lost anything from 15 to 20% of their visceral fat. The low carb group and the whole food group, who were eating 45% of their calories from carbs, had basically identical results. Even the processed carb group lost significant amounts of visceral fat, just slightly less. But here is the kicker. The whole food groups, Group 2, naturally ate 300 calories less every day without even trying. They just felt full on less food. And this study proves something that I've been saying for years. It's not about low carb versus high carb. It's about real food versus fake food. Carbs are not the enemy, guys. So here is your new diet strategy. And it's dead simple. 80% of the food that you eat should pass your great-grandfather test. In other words, if your great-grandfather wouldn't have recognized it as food, you don't eat it. So steak, broccoli, sweet potato, fantastic. But an energy drink or a power bar with 23 ingredients that you can't pronounce, stay away. Regardless of whether you want to go high carb or low carb, that's your decision to make. But what you do want to do is build these non-negotiables into your diet. Number 1, protein at every single meal. Number 2, at least 3 servings of vegetable every single day. Number 3, no sugary drinks whatsoever. And number 4, loosely linked with that, keeping added sugar under 5% of your calories. Number 5, making sure you're eating fish at least twice a week. And then last but not least, number 6, eating 90% real food, but leaving room for 10% for whatever keeps you sane. So if you have pizza with the boys on a Saturday, absolutely fine. Just make sure that the other 90% of your week is on point. This isn't about perfection. It never is. It's about consistency. Consistency requires you to fall off the ladder a little bit, as long as you catch yourself. And whatever you do, make sure that you're tracking your progress. Get some of those scales off of Amazon that track your visceral fat and then jump on those scales every single morning. Take waist measurements weekly. Monitor your energy levels. Track your sleep quality and look out to see if your clothes feel like they're fitting you better. Remember, visceral fat melts from the inside out, so you often feel these changes before you see them on the scales. But what about calories? Notice how I haven't mentioned counting calories once? That's because when you're eating real food, your body's hunger and satiety signals work properly. Remember what I said, Group 2, the whole food groups, ate 300 calories less naturally without even trying. And I see this with my clients all the time. As soon as they consciously clean up their diet and clear out all the that's been holding them back for years, they actually struggle to eat the calorie target that I've given them. So the bottom line is this. The best diet to melt visceral fat isn't some complicated protocol. It's eating like a normal human being who actually gives a damn about his health. Real meat, real vegetables, real grains. That silent killer wrapped around your organs will start to melt away. Your energy will skyrocket. Your sleep will improve. And most importantly, your risk of heart disease and diabetes will plummet. But if you're not sure where to start and want my help putting this together into a personalized plan and holding you accountable to it, click the link in the description that's underneath this video to find out exactly how my coaching program could help you. Ultimately, the choice is yours, and it's a pretty simple one. Keep feeding the toxic sludge or starve it out with real food. I don't know about you, but I know which one I'd choose. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful, but more importantly than anything, I hope it drives you to take action.